Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Software Engineer K here, and today we're going to be going through a very important topic because it's one that I think is going to help change your perspective on this NFT market as a whole and also VeVe. So I'm going to be going through, the main driving factors that's really going to push VeVe to success, and I believe this is probably going to give you a bit more of a perspective in terms of how early we really are. I know a lot of people keep saying we're early, but no one actually gives a real proper reason that makes sense as to why we are classified as being early, and also just some perspective on the differences between or more so probably the similarities between VeVe and other projects which people may perceive as being differences, just because this whole Web3 space, there are people who have their own concept of what is Web3, and it's kind of ingrained in this idea that NFTs need to be a certain thing to be considered as part of Web3, and then they kind of have their own kind of misconstrued ideas of exactly what is and what isn't an NFT. So first off, this has been kind of doing the rounds, this whole idea of IP and ownership. So here's something interesting for you, right? Yuga Labs, they own Bored Apes. They purchased the IP to CryptoPunks. Now that's interesting because a lot of people were arguing that CryptoPunks, they're valuable because they are quote unquote real NFTs. If they're real NFTs, then how did the IP get purchased by Yuga Labs? If you're a CryptoPunks owner, you didn't really have control of the IP. So does that mean CryptoPunks were not real NFTs before? And I say that because now Yuga Labs has allowed NFT holders to have commercial use of the NFT artwork. Now again, people think that means that purchasing the NFT gives you rights to the IP, and it actually they have said multiple times here, look, Yuga Labs signaled that they will be giving full commercial rights of the NFTs to individual holders. They notably won't be transferring full copyright. So Yuga Labs still actually holds the IP to your Bored Apes, they hold the IP to the CryptoPunks, they hold the IP to everything, right? They're not giving you the IP. What they're giving you is the ability to use the IP commercially. However, they still are ultimately own the IP. So if they want, they can then go sell the rights to someone else who can say you're not allowed to commercially use your Bored Apes anymore, or you're not allowed to commercially use your CryptoPunks anymore. So the whole point of this, like having an NFT and being able to do what you want with it, like it's not really a Web3 thing, it's a licensing thing. And regardless of whether the asset is stored on a centralized database somewhere, or if it's IPFS, like the blockchain itself is just essentially a database. That's what it is at the heart of it. And how you use the IP underpinning like whatever is that token is backing, that is still going to ultimately be driven by centralized institutions. It is still a licensing issue. So when people kind of hit out at VeVe saying, oh, you can't do what you want with your NFTs, etc., like it's very similar to other IPs that are people classify as being representations of what Web3 should be. So I think that's a very, very important distinction to make. And then on top of that, people kind of again still don't quite understand how VeVe's metadata is stored as opposed to other projects out there. So IPFS, again, people think that this is like the best thing to be on. It's useful, it's good, but a lot of people still don't understand the drawbacks of IPFS. Like ultimately, as it says in this article, your asset is still stored on centrally somewhere, so whoever's hosting it, like they're essentially hosting the asset, right? So there has to be some form of incentivization for them to continue hosting it. And this is where it becomes tricky, right? Because what if the asset stops being hosted? Your token now points to nothing. And ultimately you're viewing, in many cases you're going to be viewing the asset through a browser, there's multiple different ways that that content can be blocked. So IPFS, although IPFS itself is designed to be decentralized, like the applications of it are still very, very centralized. And yeah, like it's, I think once people understand that, the point, the value behind these NFTs, yes, it's like you can't really, like, being an NFT doesn't really decide how you can or can't use it, or all of that kind of decentralized stuff. It's ultimately going to come down to everything that goes around it in terms of the contractual use. Like, I think once people understand how this fully works, that is, at that point, we'll kind of start to move away from a sort of bubble that's being kind of bolstered by misconceptions, and then we'll start to move forward with like, how does this space kind of develop and move forward. So I think now that we've kind of established a few differences and similarities there, with VeVe, what is really going to push them, and this is what I've been talking about for a while, right, is a couple of things. So one, VeVe's taking a bit of a hybrid approach, and you do need to be a bit centralized in order to ensure that there is proper adherence to the law, regulations, all of the AML stuff, because only when you do that will you truly bring institutions on board. And I know that VeVe has been kind of flirting with institutions as of recently, and the big one is VeVe is kind of well positioned to start entering multiple different markets, whether that be the Indian market through their relationships with Epico Regal, or whether it be through the Singaporean relationships, or Asia in general. David Yu has huge contacts across Asia. So if we have a look here, right, so Statista, you can get a lot of stats from here. They've essentially got NFT interest across globally, and what we can see here is the way that they've weighted it is they've kind of used a rating of like 1 shows the most popularity as a fraction of their population, 50 where it's kind of neutral, and then 0 where there's probably just not enough data. And as we can see, from December onwards, right, so December of last year, interest in Hong Kong for NFTs has been greatly increasing. Right now, Hong Kong is leading the way. Now, some people would argue, hey, Hong Kong is very tiny. Okay, fair enough. There's a population around about 7 to 8 million. Singapore, they've been kind of increasing from December onwards, and they kind of quite got close on par to Hong Kong. China, they have pretty much had kind of stable interest since February onwards. Obviously, if China was following the hype, the bull market of the NFTs, and that makes sense. Play to earn is pretty big in China, as it was in the other Asian countries. Taiwan following that, again another Asian country, and then the Philippines. So the top 5 countries in the world for NFT interest, pretty much all Asia. And although this is weighted by population size as well, you have to remember that China is about 4 times as big as the US. So if you want to argue, hey, it's not really fair because Hong Kong and Singapore are small countries, it's easier to weigh against those just because they're larger. Well, China is 4 times the size of the US, and it's still top 3. So that should go to show you that once VeVe finally decides that they're ready to market in Asia, they're ready to launch a IP that is popular in Asia, the top 5 countries are all in Asia, right, for NFTs. Now, if we continue to go downwards, Lebanon and UAE, I went to Dubai last year. NFTs, are publicly advertised. They have, in Dubai Mall, like CryptoPunks on big screens. Like, NFTs are pretty big, partly because of the tax reasons, and partly because, Dubai is trying to become more of a tech/crypto Web3 kind of hub. They've got a lot more investment going into this space, so that makes sense. And then, we go into like Venezuela, South Korea, and the US isn't even on the first page. And if we have a look, the main audience right now for VeVe is Europe and US. Do we see Europe on here? No. Do we see the US on here? No. I mean, we do have quite a lot of Australians on VeVe. For some reason, all the whales seem to be from Australia. But again, Australia is kind of towards the bottom of this list, along with Canada. And, you know, US, Europe, not even on the list. So that should go to show you that VeVe has not even touched the biggest market for them. When they do, you know, I know that they've got the IP that's going to hit hardest, because I've been saying, you know, like across Asia, all the anime branded stuff, that does huge. And, you know, I'm just saying, the person who licensed Shonen Jump for the Western audience, Mr. Alfred Kahn himself, person licensed Pokemon, as you guys know, Mr. Alfred Kahn himself. And, you know, the list is endless. Like, VeVe has the right team to kind of penetrate this Asian market. It just comes down to, and I think they know that they'll have huge success there, which is why they're not doing it yet, because the app hasn't got in place everything that it needs in order to be introduced to such a wide audience. You know, it needs OUP, MCP, you know, the drop system, with the queue system, and, you know, like, they need this whole KYC thing like fully sorted out. Only then do I see them even attempting to drop in Asia, and also OMI to be on some decent exchanges. So, you know, this should kind of hopefully give you a bit more perspective that we're, you know, as cliche as it sounds, we're very early. And I kind of use an analogy, right? Like, if you open up a hamburger restaurant, that hamburger restaurant is never going to really do very well if you've opened it up in a town full of vegans, right? And that's essentially what we have right now. VeVe is targeting geographies where NFTs are still not very popular at all. But that's their main demographic as of now. When they start to target demographics where NFTs are, you know, more popular, Hong Kong, China, Singapore, then that is where we're going to start to see some true, real kind of users being onboarded. And then at that point, I think growth is going to be, you know, that kind of exponential curve. So, you know, just keep your eyes peeled, see how this develops, and yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting ride. And on, you know, on that point, just to touch on OMI, I did say that we were breaking out of that sideways trend. We need to kind of break and hold above that key point of resistance at 0.17. Now, we couldn't hold above there. We have kind of come down, but obviously that is being heavily driven by the upcoming news with the Fed, rates increases, you know, unemployment figures, GDP. If GDP is negative, you know, for the second quarter, that officially signals a recession. That is probably going to help drive the crypto market down a bit more, and hopefully we can pick up more OMI around about this 0.11 to 0.12 range. That's where I'm looking to get some more. I think we can potentially come back down here, but, you know, we will have to wait and see. For now, you know, we are still above this kind of downwards channel. I believe if we do come back down, you know, we could come back and touch around about, you know, this kind of key point of support, this 0.11 range. Hopefully, I'm hoping, you know, Bitcoin tanks more and we can touch triple zeros. Then I'm definitely going to be able to do some OMI shopping. But until then, you know, like, I'm just following the price. I'm just waiting, being patient, and, you know, I believe there will possibly be a bounce at 0.14 if we can, you know, touch 0.14 and hold above. Then we're probably solid around that range. But if we can break 0.14, then 0.11 is back on the cards, and that is really what I'm hoping for. So yeah, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I want to go through with you guys today. Thanks so much for watching. Please do like, subscribe, support the content, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.